All right. So today, as we said, I'm Tim. I run the Engage product at Zencity, and we've been spending a lot of time overhauling our results and analysis capabilities and just the way that we store our data. Today, what we're going to walk through is two things mostly. The first is what are the changes we've made? So for those of you who are used to using Engage as a tool to analyze your results, where is stuff now? What's different? What's been added? What new capabilities exist? But also I want to spend a bit of time as I'm doing that, trying to show the why behind it. And really that's about helping you be able to get the most decision-making capability out of your data. Now, if you'll indulge me for a minute, I really think that there's this correlation between Lego and data you collect. And the reason why is because of this. So Lego on its own is interesting, right? You have these blocks, all these little pieces. And when you do, and it also is expensive and takes a lot of, kind of work and energy and money to collect. And your data is a lot like that. And I don't want to dismiss anything in terms of like running great engagements and collecting all those responses. And it is interesting to just have all that data. And it's interesting to like kind of look at pieces one at a time, but really you don't get the full value out of your data unless you kind of like piece it together in the right way. And then you're able to look at it from multiple directions and actually make some conclusions, which I'm sure you agree with. But just like Lego, it takes time and energy and effort to be able to do that, and even a little bit of expertise. And so really what I wanted to start with today was just a little bit of a list of the motivations for why we did this major results overhaul. And the first one on the list is really about this. It's about saving you time. And so we really tried to go through the end-to-end kind of workflow that our clients were performing when they're running engagement and when they're pulling results, and really try to understand where are the places that we can make things easier. Where can we add automations? Where can we add AI and analysis? Where can we default things better? And I think you're going to find a really great experience. Also, what we want to do is we wanted to make it so that if there were things that maybe you were missing, that we surface those. We help you discover the insights that could really lead to better trust building and transparency and decision making, and really making your policies so they're going to, and programs so they're going to really meet the needs of your residents. Third, we want to open up more integration between Engage and Engage's data and other products in the Zencity 360 platform. And so this is more of the behind the scenes side of the project and the work we did. But by updating how we're storing our data, it's going to be more performant and it's going to be more integratable and potentially be able to pull insights between products in the future. So if you have organic, or if you have community surveys, or if you have customer experience or Blockwise, there's all sorts of new possibilities we've opened up. The fourth item is things you ask for. So we've been hearing over the years more powerful ways to filter, more question types you want to filter by, more ability to include those type of things in reports, and more options in reports. And so we took all your feedback and we implemented a whole bunch of them. And then just simply from an experience side, we wanted to make it look better, colors, just the way you navigate. And in the end, just provide more tools at getting back to the public so you can build that trust. In the end, though, it's all about decision-making value. And so I'm here to walk through in the platform how we do that. So most of this webinar is just going to be me in the platform walking through things. This is a bit of an inventory on what we are going to address. So I have it grouped into 5 categories, but hopefully some of these get you excited. We have a whole new kind of user experience. And so that's the updated colors and styles. We have the ability to kind of move and expand and contract sections. We have a new nav item, which links to a centralized listing screen, which is going to change the way, it's going to change the number of clicks you have to do to get to the results you're looking for engagement activities, which is going to be really nice. And we've also added some searchability, so some quicker ways to get to questions you're looking for results for. On the participant side, we really wanted to improve the way you understand who your participants are. So showing some demographic previews, giving you the ability to boost your participant count if necessary, showing how we're counting your participants, because there's actually different ways to do that, and giving you more options, and then also increasing our deduplication capabilities. Filter and compare, we've expanded to all question types. You can now have multiple simultaneous filters running. Any filter or state of a question you're looking at, you can share that URL. I'm going to walk through what that looks like. We've made it so that we're defaulting comparison questions to demographic questions if you have set them up. And we've added a date range filter that we didn't have before. And then we've added a whole AI auto analysis piece, and it's really exciting. And essentially, it gives you recommendations and breaks down of complicated two-dimensional data and kind of lets you know where there's trends or insights that you may not see just by looking at the data table or the chart yourself, which is really meant to enhance that ability for you to notice new insights, notice new ideas. And then finally, we've really overhauled and added a ton of capability to reporting. So results are great for you to make decisions. They're also really helpful if you get them out to the public. And so excited to walk through the ways that we do that. So I'm going to flip over now to the platform itself and just show you how to walk through and enjoy and get the most out of these capabilities. So first, what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you the new kind of high-level user experience. So the first thing you'll notice is on your navigation bar on the left-hand side in the platform, Engage here used to just be a clickable item. It didn't have one of these accordions that would show you sub-items, and now it does. And so you used to click on Engage and you get to what we call the dashboard. Now we also have a results and analysis kind of central, a place where all your results and analysis flow. And why this is important and a big change is that you used to have to click on dashboard and then admin view and then projects and then pick a project and then pick an engagement and then pick the result. It was like 7 clicks to get to it. And now what we've done is if you click this link, you're going to be brought to this screen, and it brings together all your engagement activity, emphasizing the most recent activities first so that you can more quickly get to what you are looking for. So that is a big improvement. You'll notice it's structured in 3 sections. So everything that's currently open is at the top. Things that have recently closed are in the middle, and things that closed a long time ago are at the bottom. So hopefully giving you the capability to see and notice what is going to be most helpful. Now, what we've also done is we've added some filters. So if you're only interested in engagements from a certain project or a certain category, you can really easily look at that. So I could, type, I could choose something here, and then I will filter down my list to what I want to see. So that can be a quick way to get what you're looking for. You may also notice these little rocket ship links that say boost. I could zoom in a little, maybe you could see them more easily. So what we also offer now, and it's something we trialed last year, but it's a little more prominent now on the platform, is if you have at least 10 days left in your engagement that you're running and you're looking for additional participants, we actually have a paid service through our professional services department where they will recruit they'll recruit a group of citizens from within your jurisdiction, and they'll be able to boost essentially the participation numbers of your engagement if you're looking to kind of fill some gaps. And so all you need to do is click that button, and it will send a message to one of our team members, and someone on professional services or customer success will get back to you and just talk about the program and what your needs are and how that works. So that's a great little new option that's available. You can see the button will only show up on engagement cards where you have more than 10 days left. So for the ones that are about to close, you will not see that. Next, one thing you will notice, I'm going to walk through all these new UIs for results, and you'll see them most of the time. But if you have run engagements in the past, like we're talking the first half of 2023 or earlier, we still, on those, you'll see this little legacy indicator on an engagement. And if you see that on the card, what's going to happen is those are going to link to the old system. So if you're ever like, hey, how come I seem to go to something that looks like the old results system? It's because you're probably looking at an engagement. And the cutoff date we have is any engagement where results have been run, where results were collected before August 1st. So if all the results collected, all your responses collected for an engagement were after August 1st, 2023, then those results are going to show up in in the new fashion. However, what we've done to make it convenient is we're still showing cards for both. So if you're a client, say you've been a client of Engage for many years, you'll be able to see all your old stuff and your new stuff mixed together. It's just they may link to separate places when you click on a card to analyze. All right, and then you may be wondering about the counts. So there's two counts here. There's the participant count and there is the response count. So the participant count is focused on how many people participated in your engagement and gave you at least one response. So that's how we are defining it for these cards. And the responses is how many actual pieces of data total were collected on the engagement. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to scroll down here to this recently closed engagement called Build Your Entertainment District Budget. And when I click on it, I'm going to be brought to the new participation summary screen. And so this screen is really here to tell you about what was your participation like in your engagement. So you have a lot of things here that could be helpful. One, we show you the different ways you could count participants. So here we show all the people who started your engagement, all the people who responded to at least one question on your engagement, all the people who fully completed your engagement, and then what is that as a completion rate and what were the total data points collected. And you'll notice we have two rows. One row is for if we're deduplicating responses and one row is if we're not. And so there's a whole help desk article on this if you're interested in it, but essentially what deduplication means is if we detect that the same device submitted multiple times on an engagement, if you turn on deduplication, what it will do is only include the first response from each device. If you turn it off, it will include all responses from all devices. So you can see even here, now this is test data that I've entered in. So a lot of it's been done on the same computer. So you can see like if, because of this, the 14 submissions that I started, only 5 of them were kind of on separate devices that I used. And so it's only counting 5 if I turn my deduplication on. And this is really helpful if you're trying to understand, well, how much of an issue is it in terms of us having people trying to participate more than once. So it's nice just to be able to, on your participation summary, see that breakdown. Now, reasons you might see a very big gap that aren't a cause for alarm is if you were using, say, iPads at an event or a shared computer at a library or something to run engagements and you're going door to door. Obviously, if you collect multiple submissions on that same device, you're going to have a very high amount of responses that get filtered out if you turn deduplication on. So in those cases, we recommend when looking at results, keeping your deduplication off. But the goal here is to kind of put you in charge that you can see that breakdown right from the get-go. Now, after that, it can be helpful to see which pages were completed, and where your kind of drop-off points are throughout the engagement. And so you can see here that kind of page 3, 4, 5, we're getting people dropping off. You can also see what days that you receive submissions. All of our graphs have little mouse overs, so you can see more information if you click on them. And then a new thing that we've launched is the ability to see demographic question previews. So this is the first place that AI kind of comes in, and it's a little bit under the radar. So what we do is when the questions that you create in your engagements come into the results system, we actually run a quick little AI classification on them to determine what type of question they are. And so that could be everything from demographic to qualitative to a number of other things. And if it's been labeled as demographic, those specific questions will actually show on the participation summary screen this little preview. Now, if you clicked on the full results summary link, you can actually get through to the full results for that question as you normally would, but it's just a little convenience method to help bring together all information about participants into one spot. All right, so that's a bit of the summary of participation or participants. From there now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to how to get to your questions. So if you're familiar with old Engage results, you're probably used to a little navigation on the side that showed page numbers. And one of the challenges there was you always had to know what page your question was on that you want to look at results for. So we've remedied this and made it a lot simpler now. So number one is you have these arrows. And the left and right arrows just allow you to really quickly click and cycle through all the questions on an engagement, which is nice and easy. You don't have to worry about going from page to page. It's just one question at a time. But additionally, we also have this great little drop-down, and the drop-down's searchable. So if you don't really remember what page a question was on, but you do remember, a word from the question, like, you had the word line item, you can just type line item, and then now only questions with the word line item in the question title will show up on the dropdown. You can click and you can jump right to that question. So two really much more convenient ways to get to the results for the question you're looking for. Now, one thing you'll also notice is we're no longer putting many questions results on one screen. We're sticking to one question per screen. It makes it easier to manage. It makes it easier to navigate through, and we think you're going to enjoy that experience. You'll also notice we've thrown in a new kind of color palette that allows you to analyze your responses with a little more beauty, and so hopefully you enjoy the rainbow that we have chosen. Options that still exist. So if you click here, you can see on this little 3 dots drop down for any chart or visualization that you're seeing at any point. You can click the download chart button, and it will actually grab an image file, like a PNG of that particular chart. So if you've applied, I'm going to show you in a minute, filters or deduplication or any, maybe change the visualization type, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're looking at that moment, it will download a visual of that chart. So if you're looking to use external tools, like if you want to build a PowerPoint or put it on your, a website that is like your government website, you can totally grab an image and do that. If you're interested just in the specific data, and not the entire export of the whole engagement, which we'll cover later, but just literally this table of data that ends up feeding the chart, you can just click the download CSV button, and it will just do a really quick download of just kind of that tabulated breakdown of your responses. So those options are still there and are really helpful for when you're looking to kind of integrate or use another system. All right. So now what I want to do is I just want to walk through some of these filtering and deduplication options, because some of these existed before, some of these are new, but the way they work and the way that you kind of navigate through them is different. So I'm going to start over here on the right, and deduplication is often turned on by default. For this demo, I'm going to turn it off, so you can now see the difference. Now we have 11 participants, as opposed to when it was on, we only had 2 who have answered this specific question. And so it's going to be a little more helpful to have a little more data. So now I'm looking at this question. Obviously, the breakdown changes as soon as I choose that value or choose that deduplication setting. And so that's really helpful that you are in full control of that. Additionally, we've moved our filters to the top. And one reason we did this is because now, as you've obviously, if you use other Zencity products, you've obviously seen, for example, in organic or in surveys, most of the time the filters are at the top. So just to bring a sense of consistency, we put the filters at the top of the screen as well. And so hopefully now they're operating in a manner that is much more similar to how you're dealing with other types of Zencity data. And we've also added some new exciting capabilities here. So date range is new. So if you are looking only to see responses for a certain date range, you can now easily enter in your start date and your end date. And you can see now I've got my responses down to, now my participants down to 6. And just to really clearly explain what's going on here, what the filters do is the filters take your whole set of participants and they narrow it down based on a set of criteria. Then when you're looking at question results, those question results are only going to show for the participants that meet the criteria above. So sometimes there's a little bit of confusion, like, well, especially with the question and answer filter, like, is that connected to this visualization that I'm seeing? And the answer is not really, in the sense that your filters up here filter who the participants are. You can see now here how many are left, and then what percentage of those actually answered the question you're looking at. But then the results themselves here are pretty much just showing from that subset of participants that you selected above. So now that I'm looking at my subset, I see, oh, this is interesting. Maybe people from this date range responded differently than people with from the entire length of the engagement. Now, what I'm going to do is just click this X, and you can see that I can easily clear out my filter. I can also filter by language. So if I only wanted to see French speakers, for example, I could run the French filter or the English filter. And so now I can definitely see, okay, I have, I can see the number of participants I have who completed this in English, for example. And then from there, you can also see that I have my completedness filter. So in this case, if what I am interested in is only including people in when I'm looking at my results who completed the whole engagement, I can choose this completed submissions option. And now I only have the 8 people who got all the way through, got all the way to that last page, that thank you page. So that can be useful. And now usually what we find the use case for clients is I've set my filters, and now I'm often going to be looking at multiple questions. So now I can see, okay, for this first question, we've reduced to 8 participants with my filters. All 8 of them completed this question. The second question, actually only 3 people from the 8 people who I'm filtering out completed this question. And then so on. Okay, this question, 8 people filled out. This question, all 8 people filled out, et cetera, et cetera. And so it can be helpful to determine what your filter set is and then work through after that point all the questions in your engagement. Now, there may be times you want to apply separate filters for separate questions, but what we find one of the most common things is that clients say, hey, I only want to include people who've completed, or I want to look at everything through a deduplication lens, or we asked the question about, do you live within the city limits? And it was yes, no. We only actually want to include people in our results who answered yes. So this makes it really easy to set that set of filters up. And then as you look through and analyze your results, it's going to be completely based upon the filter set you provided. So there you go. That's a little bit of an intro into the filters, a little bit of an intro into the deduplication, and hopefully that just gives you some sort of an idea of how you could use those capabilities when you are analyzing your results. All right, now we're going to look over here on the right. And what you're going to see here is that we've added a standard right-hand side column to all of our questions that give some sort of enhanced information or insights about your engagement data. Now, it's actually going to be different for different types of questions. So, for example, if I was looking at a question that was more open-ended, like this one, I would notice that I am seeing, just like the top keywords that emerge. And then over here on the right, what I have is my list of all the responses, including in this case, it looks like I have a response that was translated, which is interesting and helpful. Whereas if I'm looking at, say, a numeric question, I'm seeing a different type of breakdown. I'm seeing a cross-tabulation or a comparison available over here on the right-hand side. And so, and then if I'll show you a map question later, you can see comments from pins on the side. So it's kind of our new setup that in the main column here, which takes up most of the space on the left, is your basic question analysis, but on the right, you get a little bit extra. So for this budget question, for example, we could choose to compare this budget question with another question. And so the way that we would do that is maybe I choose the level of education question, and then I'm able to click through individual line items and see what the distribution is on those line items in terms of how much money they allocated, broken down by education level. So you can get pretty advanced if that's something that's interesting or helpful to you. If you want to see this chart larger, you can actually click this button and it will actually expand out so that you have a little more space. If you're not interested in this sidebar at all, you can click to close it completely and just kind of focus on your core results. So just a few different options there in terms of how the page can lay out and how you can use that kind of extra information. The area we're most excited about in terms of extra information is this insights area. And so essentially what we're doing is we're making it that anytime you're viewing two-dimensional quantitative data, so that could be a matrix question, that could be an open value budget question like participatory budgeting, that could be a ranking question where you have a certain number of items and you're allotting them to a certain priority slots as a resident, or it could be when you're having a simple quantitative question like choose one of the following, when you're comparing that against another question, it kind of creates a two-dimensional data set. We want to give you a bit of help, and we want to be able to show you AI-powered insights that are both going to break down the data, identify any potential interesting insights, but also potentially even give you recommendations based on the data. Now, what's really great is that these will automatically generate for certain types of questions, like matrix and budget and ranking. And then if you're looking at a more quantitative question and you would like to generate an insight, I'll just click over here. There we go. Here's one. You'll see this little button that says Insights for You, and all you have to do is click View Insights, and then it will run some AI generation, and it will say, okay, we're comparing zip code to neighborhood, which is probably not it's probably not a great example in terms of giving us a great insight that's going to be super useful. But at the same time, you have this freedom and openness that whenever you change what question you're choosing, what filters you apply, what deduplication setting, and what comparison, all those variables are kind of unique, and you can actually generate a unique insight from any combination of those. So once you've kind of set up things with the question and the comparison to filter the way you like, you can run View Insight and you can get some really helpful feedback. So for example, if I went back to my budget question here, I can see this is the insight. But if I said, you know what, I only want to have the English respondents, then I would get a different insight because some of the people who responded in French. And so that can be this really interesting way to say, hey, yeah, this is kind of a complicated chart, right? Like if you're not used to looking at histograms of budget distribution values, maybe it's a bit intimidating. So how can we help you out? How can we give you a little bit of automated insight based upon that data that you're seeing there? That being said, if you want to dive in deeper and you're like, hey, I want to look at, the cross-tabulation of, budget allocation against gender identity, I can go through each line item and I can see how that's allocated. And then if I'm interested, because I see some interesting trend, I can go and generate an insight for that particular cross-tabulated chart and I can get it. So lots of flexibility, lots of help there in terms of different ways of viewing your data and different ways of providing you insights about that data that hopefully can help with noticing things and decision-making in your local government settings. So that's a quick walkthrough of those. One thing that I will point out is that we used to have comparison in the platform, but it was only for really simple quantitative questions to other really simple quantitative questions. Now it's opened up for any type of question. And so you can definitely now, any sort of question that is kind of numeric and your data is tabular, you can run a compare to any other question that meets those criteria. So that's a big new win. All right, I'm going to return to our activity listing. This is always an option that's available just by this back to activities link up top, and that will give you all the engagement activities that you have run. Now, one thing that's fantastic about Engage is that it's not just, what would you call it? It's not just closed engagements that you can analyze insights for. The only restriction we have on closed engagements is that the AI analysis is only available once your engagement's complete. But everything else we showed you is actually available while engagements are running. And so I'm just gonna, for example, use a category filter here. I'm gonna search for housing. It's gonna show me my housing engagement. So I'm gonna click on that. And I'm just gonna walk through some of the other question types for an engagement that is currently in session, that is already running, right? And so I'm going to go here. I know I have a question about effectiveness of affordable housing. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to jump straight to that question. And it's a matrix question. And so now we can walk through just a few more question types and what their data analysis looks like and things that you can do. So as I mentioned before, you can always change the visualization. So if you want vertical bars, in this case, instead of horizontal bars, that's something that you can definitely try out. Remember, you can always mouse over and see additional data, counts, percentages about your particular data set. You have your data table here that's available. Now, if this was an engagement that was closed, you'd have the ability to run your AI-powered insights. it's not, so you're going to have to wait until your engagement wraps up. However, you can still run a comparison. So if I'm really interested, for example, in comparing this matrix question, one line item, like the ability for for affordable housing to influence increasing spending in the local economy, I can see my responses here broken down, but I can also see if I want them broken down by the motivations that people had to participate in this engagement, or maybe you had something about age or gender or whatever it is. And you'll notice these little arrows, they let you actually cycle through the individual line items. So if you, and this is to make it so that when you're looking at a matrix question, you can actually run comparisons on those questions too, one line item at a time. So just another little improvement that lets you do a little bit of deeper analysis across the question type set. So I click through that, I see information. Interesting. Okay, next. I'm going to actually run a question and answer filter now. So question and answer filters are really interesting because what they let you do is break down or to let you exclude people who don't meet certain criteria based on how they answered certain questions. And what's really interesting about this now is it used to be something that we once again limited to simple quantitative questions. Now it works on all sorts of questions. So I'm going to actually choose this map pin drop question just as an example. And I can actually say, I only want people who added a pin to the map to be included in the results set when I'm analyzing. So I'm going to go from 14 down to 10. There's only 10 people added a pin on my map question. And so now if I click through and look at my different pages, every question's influenced by that filter. And so maybe that's not what you're looking for, but maybe you are interested in the answer to a more open-ended question. And you can literally say, you know what, I only want to include people who mention the word budget on this question on page 2. So I can apply, and then now I have a much different filter set. It looks like my filter set is empty because no one said that. And so, but you get the idea that I can specify something. Maybe let me try another term, maybe environment. Let's say environment. And there you go. 2 people specified the word environment in the answer to this question. So now I'm just seeing all my results through the eyes of those 2 people. So you can probably think about all the different possibilities now for if you want to make sure that your participants are only, that you're looking at data only from participants who answered certain questions certain ways. You can do that, and then those things will be applied across the board. So say you are really interested in what people were motivated by. You could say, you know what, I actually only want to look at results for people who are motivated by these, 3 options. I want to exclude the rest. So I'm going to click apply. And then now as I click through my questions, I am actually seeing only those folks, which is interesting. As I move forward here to a question that is more open-ended in its analysis, what you can see is that I am now seeing some keywords that appear. Also on the right, I'm seeing the responses. A new feature is we have this copy all responses button. And copy all responses is great if you have a small number of responses and you just, without having to do a CSV export and get your email and whatever, you just want to get all those copied to your clipboard so you can post them in a Word document or in a report somewhere. So it's just a little convenience method we've added. Now, if you have many responses, you're going to have to scroll to the bottom of the list in order to get to be able to copy all responses. And one reason is because some clients have 60,000 responses, and if they just grabbed it, it would kind of blow up their clipboard. So it's something that's more aimed at smaller engagements. But if you have, a couple hundred responses, you scroll through them, you click copy, now you have them available to use in other places. Next, we're going to look at just a more simple quantitative question. And so here, things are very similar to how they used to be. You'll notice one thing is that we pre-default the comparison to being on. And that's not something we used to do. And it's because now that we have kind of 2 areas on the page, we can show your main kind of chart on the left, and then we can show the comparison on the right. Another little enhancement we added was if using that AI question classification, we actually will bump up questions that are demographic to the top of the list of questions you want to compare. And that means when it auto kind of picks one to start with, it picks one from the top, and you're more likely to have a comparison that's useful to you than having to hunt through the dropdown for a question that you want to compare to that is useful for you. What's also neat is that you can now run a compare against the matrix question. It's just once you pick the question, you're going to have to pick which line item you want to compare against. So once again, we're getting into the nitty-gritty, but really trying to open up options for you to run the comparisons. All right, pin drop questions. So whether it's a map or image pin drop question, what we've done is really streamline the experience here. So you do have the ability that if you are zooming in and zooming out of the results, you're going to get the pin clustering like you are used to. I'm going to turn off deduplication here so we see more pins. There we go. So you can see pins show up on the map, which is helpful. But also you'll notice here on the right-hand side, we have comments. And the comments correlate to the pins. Now, if you're like, I want to see which pin correlates to which comment, you can actually click on a comment and it will zoom and pan the map right to the spot where that comment is. So you can actually move around. If you're really kind of interested in comment-based, start with the comments. If you're interested more in the map-based, start with the map. And then if you do click on the map on a pin, it will also show you the comment right there. So really nice little capability. And then another enhancement people asked for recently that we've added is if you want to export your pin data, our normal CSV export, since it includes one row per submission, it kind of lumps multiple pins together in a format that people have previously said is hard to import into third-party tools. So what we've done actually on the map question is we've added a CSV export, which just lists one pin per row in a latitude, longitude, comment kind of format. And now it's much easier to interface with or import into any sort of GIS or third-party applications. So just a nice little add there. If that's something that your team, maybe your tech team or your GIS team would be interested in terms of showing off that data. All right, from there, looking at a numeric question. So numeric questions still show a nice histogram here. As before, you can change the visualization type if you would like, but you can kind of see the distribution of the responses, which can be helpful. You can still run compares against numeric questions, which is really great. And so, for example, here, I might say, okay, I want to compare this question against the motivation question. And what I may find out here when I'm looking at the data is that, okay, it looks like there's this purple shows up a lot with this high number of months of construction. So to me, it says that people who are willing to influence some of the details of my planning process are also the ones that are most likely to be okay with longer lengths of construction time. Maybe that's an interesting takeaway for me that I can use when planning the construction of my initiative, but it just shows you some of the power of that analysis breakdown. Moving on to an image select question, you'll notice now if you mouse over the image select question chart, you will actually see the image that we showed on the engagement. And so in a case like this, where the engagement, the titles were option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, those don't actually say very much. But if you had the picture on the screen that helped your residents choose, well, now you get to see the picture when you're doing your analysis. So just a little helper to make that nice and easy for you. From there, other similar types of questions that we've been looking at. This is the breakdown for a question that is a fixed value budget question. So you can also see here what the cost of each item was and how many people chose that. All right, so that's a bit of a breakdown into different types of questions, different states in terms of engagements that are live, engagements that are still running, and how most things are similar there. Yeah, there's a lot that you can really dig into and analyze and export and use in different ways. And we're really proud and excited for you to be able to make use of that. But one of the hugest use cases of Engage is the ability to get your data back to other people, whether it's internally or back to residents, to kind of build that transparency and trust. And so we've really expanded our capabilities here on the share results menu. Now, this used to kind of be spread out all over the place. Now it's all in one spot. Share results, top right-hand corner, you click on the down arrow and you see all your options to share. Now, the bottom two options you're probably already familiar with. You can export your responses as a CSV, or you can export your responses as a translated CSV. So for example, if you had an engagement that was in multilingual and you had people inputting responses and they said, I want the Spanish version, and they gave you Spanish responses, it will translate them back to English when you do your export translated CSV. So two great things to have. The format of the CSV is mostly unchanged. We've changed the column names a bit so they're more sensible in terms of, like on a matrix question, it will show the line item name first versus the question first. So it's just, you kind of see the unique part first. We've also made it so that the file name isn't just like export.csv. It actually is the name of the engagement and the date, so that if you have multiple of them on your computer, it works nice and smoothly. So that's a nice little bonus. Another thing, if I just kind of show off here my browser kind of history and my back button, we've also updated the page titles. So if you're looking at your history or you're looking at your tab, it actually uses, something that's really helpful in terms of like the name of the question or the name of the engagement if you're looking at the participation summary. Just little convenience methods to make it more easy to move around and navigate. But the pièce de résistance is getting back to stakeholders and citizens. So let's take a look here at this new option we have called Build a PDF report. Now, this used to exist in the sense that we had a button that would just fire you over to the Zencity-wide engagement report builder, but it would kind of start you from scratch. And so you'd have to then go and find your engagement and questions and add them individually. Now, if you click Build a PDF report, we've actually added a convenience method, which right now behind the scenes, it's crunching away. And it's going to actually add a visualization for every single question in your engagement by default. So your starting point is usually much more likely to be what you are hoping that your engagement will show. So as you can see here, you got your kind of breakdown of submissions, you have your matrix question, you have your map question, all the data you're likely want to have is there. But then what's also great is you can kind of click in here, and if you want to add text, you can add text. If you want to remove a question, you can remove a question. If you want to add data from other products to mix in with this information, you can do that. And so really helpful starting point now to make it easier to add questions, which is great. We've also made it easy if you are adding questions individually, you can now go to an engagement and click. We show each a visualization, kind of a little kind of thumbnail preview, and then you can click the button here and it will add it, and you can kind of add them one after another really quickly instead of having to navigate around drop downs and back and forth. It's a much quicker experience to build a report, which is neat. But what I also wanted to show you is that when I'm looking at my results here, there are some filters we actually carry over into the report builder. So if I click on, for example, completedness on, and I click deduplication on, and now I click build a PDF report, it's going to do the same thing it just did. It's going to assemble that report with the data, but it's going to do it with those two filters applied. And you can tell that because if I click on the filters option now, you'll see complete and deduplication are on, whereas last time they were off. So those are the two filters that actually do get passed from Engage Results into Report Builder. So once again, just trying to make it a little more easy, a little more convenient for you. All right, so that's Report Builder. Lots of great enhancements there. We're really excited for you to try them out. But the area that we get really excited about is getting back to citizens. And so what is really helpful is often that ability to build that web page that's mobile and accessible and interactive that we can send to our citizen base. Now, previously, we were able to build these, but there were limited options in terms of customization, and you could only make one at the end of an engagement. Now you're able to do it much earlier in the process. So you'll notice here the first thing that happens, which I think will bring joy to some of your hearts, is that it tells you that filters have been applied, and whatever filters you were looking at this is all the filters that were applied when you were looking at your results carry over into your online summary and will affect the data that you publish back to a web page. So this is really key if you want to be able to take that filtering of, say, only including people who live in the city limits by running a question and answer filter. You can apply that filter, and when you apply that filter, it will then reduce your participants down. It even shows you that we're down from 24 to 5. So we've cut out a lot of people. And that's just really helpful in terms of I have full control over the subset of data that I'm going to publish. All right, from there, we have this new option called private. Private makes it so that you don't necessarily have to show on your project pages in Zencity Engage that you've published results. And this can be really helpful if you have a small group of stakeholders, if you want to keep it more internal to staff. If you choose private, you will get the URL of the report you generated, of the web-based online summary, but it won't show up to the public. So a nice little option to have. Now, if you like it showing up to the public, you can just choose the public option. Now, this engagement is currently running. So right now, since it's running, on the project page, it's going to show, the engagement name and a participate now button. And so we don't also want to show a button that says view results. Essentially, after the engagement finishes, there will be an option to say publicly advertise, which will add that view results button in the place where the participate now button used to be on your engagement. So you have the option, I can make an engagement and publish it privately and have just the URL, or I can make it public and it will show up on my project page. So that's new. And you can publish this engagement even though the engagement is still running. Now I can name this report however I'd like. So I'll call it, my webinar report. And then I can add an introduction. And so I'll just say, webinars are great. And then I can highlight that. I can bold and italicize and underline and add bullets and images and all sorts of stuff. So I can actually not just include my results in my report, I can include some analysis or introduction and conclusion. We have a simple button here that lets you include all questions or no questions. You can toggle on and off individual questions you want on your online summary. But here's the big change. You can now choose which visualization type you would like, and you can include the data table if you would like. So I can say, you know what, this is better suited as a donut chart, and this one I'm going to want the data table, and this one I don't want to show at all. And so I can really pick and choose what I want to include. And then also a change is that I don't have to publish this right away or I lose it. I can click save, and I can save kind of a draft report that I'm building. So there's my webinar report. You can see with the eye with a line through it means it's not publicly visible when I do publish it. I'm going to go back now and edit it. And this time I am going to publish it. And I'm just going to kind of show you what that publishing life cycle looks like. So what it's doing right now is it's kind of creating a snapshot of the data based on the filters and questions and visualizations I chose. And it's going to send that over to your kind of Engage resident facing site and make it so that it's available on the web. So these things usually don't take very long. So I'm just going to refresh and hopefully we're good to go. And we are. So you'll notice right now we do have a limit that we can only publish one of these at a time. That is a limit that we're looking to lift later in the year as we kind of do some more updates to our resident-facing architecture. But for now, if you publish one report, other ones will be archived. So now that it's published, I have options to view the summary, copy a shareable link, copy an embed code that I can drop into my website. Or if this happened to be the engagement was closed, I could change the visibility to public and kind of show this. I can flip my choice that I made before about how public I want to show it. So I'm just going to click View Results Summary and show you an example of what one of these looks like. So you can see here, this is where I said webinars are great. You can also see that citizens can now interact with this. It's going to use the fonts that I chose for my Engage site. So that's all customizable by you. It's going to be mobile friendly so that people can click and scroll through it on their mobile device. It's interactive. If they mouse over, they can see more information. Now, it's also privacy protective. So the individuals in your community, they don't get to click and see what information that's personally identifiable. But trends like here's some of the keywords that they can't see individual responses, but they could see trends for keywords, for example. And what is also really great about this, and one request that we actually got multiple times was, hey, is this something that you could like export into a PowerPoint? And we didn't really want to get connected into a third-party format. But what we did do is we added this display as separate pages option, and it actually kind of then functions like a little presentation. So if you ever want to publish this and then present it internally or have someone present it at an event, they can actually click through now each question individually, but in this kind of public-facing kind of way, and walk through the results and the data. And we have a little question drop down here so you can jump from question to question if you would like to do that. So that is like a big, long walkthrough of all the new recent stuff. I'm really excited to show it off to you and to get to walk through it today. Before I finish and go for questions, I wanted to give one sneak preview because I'm guessing one of the questions that you have is about quantitative or qualitative data and what is kind of coming there. I showed the keywords breakdown that we currently have. Also, some of you may have been on our beta of topic clustering, where we break down and theme responses that are kind of open-ended into clusters, into groups of topics for you. And I have good news, is that we're very, very close to our kind of topic clustering 2.0 release. And so we've been working with the AI team at Zencity, and they have a much more effective kind of clustering algorithm. And we're going to be integrating that into a brand new user interface in the next couple months. And so this is something that you will see soon. What you'll notice is that we're going to be showing you not only what topics all the responses for an open-ended question break down into. We're going to make it so that we actually show for the individual responses which topics apply to each response. So you can see the breakdown percentage-wise on the left. You'll also be able to see the individual responses on the right. And when you click on a topic, you'll be able to see a filtered list of just responses that meet that topic or that subtopic. So now when you run an engagement and say, hey, do you have any other ideas for us, or what's your biggest concern, you're going to be able to really quickly get a really nice breakdown of what is going on, what is kind of most popular in terms of the responses. So that's a month or two out, but it is coming soon, and it's going to also be available in the different reporting mediums that we're offering. So just wanted to give that quick shout out to what's coming next. That's all I have for today. Maybe I just want to see if there's any questions in the chat. Catherine, I don't know if you've been monitoring that or if people have anything that they wanted to ask.
No questions so far. We still have a couple more minutes if anybody wants to throw them in the chat. I think, Tim, you've just done such a great job that there's no need for clarity at this point. We'll give it a couple more seconds. Okay.
Oh, there's one in the Q&A now.
Yep. So the question is, are questions ADA accessible?
Are questions ADA accessible? Okay, so I will answer, I'll try to answer this question two ways, and hopefully one of them is the right way. So all the questions that we end up asking our clients, we have done a lot of work to make sure they meet WCAG 2.1 AA requirements. There are challenges with questions that are like map and image pin drop based. For that reason, one of the things that we actually enforce is that we can't make those questions, what would you call them, required, because that's going to actually be a barrier to some people being able to complete your engagement. So in general, yes, like for example, on a ranking question, we even have a full way to kind of navigate and reorder items with your keyboard. For something like a map pin drop question, we don't have a way that, like, for example, a screen reader is able to interact with it. So we enforce that you can't make that type of question required. And we always encourage, if there is, for example, something in the comments of a pin that someone might drop, we would always encourage, like, is there an alternate question that someone can answer on an engagement to be able to communicate that information.
Okay, looks like that's wrapping it up. Thank you to everyone who attended. We will be sending out the recording over the next few days. And yeah, thank you again. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.